Ambassador of the Diplomatic Corps, had spent 40 standard cycles studying alien species across the galaxy. He had witnessed the brutal hunting rituals of the. He had documented the hive mind consciousness of the. He had even survived a formal dinner with the notoriously aggressive. But nothing in his extensive career had prepared him for the absolute madness he witnessed on Earth Station 7. The human woman was sitting on the floor of the diplomatic waiting area. Her formal business attire was now covered in thick purple slime, and she was laughing, actually laughing with joy as a creature called a mud crawler wrapped its 17 tentacles around her torso. "Who's a good boy? Who's my precious little slime baby?" the woman cooed at the creature. Turned to his assistant, Junior Diplomat, with complete horror written across his 3 facial segments. "Please tell me I am experiencing some form of hallucination caused by the atmospheric differences on this station." Checked his biological scanner twice before responding. "No, Ambassador. Your perception is functioning correctly. The human is indeed embracing a mud crawler, a creature that is classified as extremely toxic and highly dangerous in 17 different star systems." The woman looked up at the 2 aliens staring at her. She smiled warmly and lifted one of the creature's tentacles to wave at them. "Oh, don't mind Bubbles. He's completely harmless once you get to know him. I adopted him 3 years ago when my cargo ship found him floating alone in the debris field of Sector 9. Poor little guy was just a baby back then." Felt his secondary heart skip several beats. "You named a toxic predator, Bubbles." "Well, he makes these adorable bubble sounds when he's happy," the woman explained as if this was the most normal thing in the universe. "Would you like to pet him? He loves meeting new friends." Both diplomats took several large steps backward. This encounter was only the beginning of their confusion. Over the following weeks, and his team conducted extensive research into human behavior patterns. They visited human colonies across 3 different sectors. They interviewed hundreds of human subjects. They analyzed thousands of hours of video footage. And with each passing day, their confusion only grew deeper and more profound. On the mining colony of Asteroid Belt Delta, they encountered a human family who had adopted a crystalline spider from the caves of Prime. The creature was the size of a small ground vehicle. Its fangs could inject venom capable of dissolving titanium. Its 8 legs ended in claws sharp enough to cut through reinforced steel. And it was currently wearing a tiny knitted sweater that said "Princess" in bright pink letters. "She gets cold when the environmental systems drop below standard temperature," the human father explained while feeding the spider pieces of raw meat from his hand. "My daughter made the sweater for her 5th birthday. Princess has been part of our family for almost 12 years now." The human daughter, a small child of approximately 7 years, was currently riding on the spider's back while braiding ribbons into its leg hair. "Is this creature not capable of killing your entire family within seconds?" asked with genuine bewilderment. The human father laughed as if this was a funny joke. "Oh sure, Princess could probably take out half the colony if she wanted to, but she would never hurt us. She knows we love her. She's family." Made extensive notes in his research document. He underlined the word family 17 times because humans seem to use this word in ways that all logical understanding. Their investigation continued to a space station orbiting the gas giant. Here they found a human couple who had adopted not 1 but 3 flame serpents from the volcanic moons of the system. These creatures could generate temperatures hot enough to melt through ship hulls. Their natural behavior involved consuming entire ecosystems through fire. They were classified as extinction-level threats on 34 different worlds. The human couple had named them Sparkle, Cinnamon, and Hot Dog. "Hot Dog is the troublemaker of the group," the human woman said fondly while the serpent wrapped around her shoulders and produced small flames near her face. "He likes to set the furniture on fire when he wants attention. We've had to replace the couch 6 times this year alone." "And this does not concern you?" asked "Oh, it's just his way of saying he loves us," the woman replied. Besides, the insurance company finally started covering fire damage after we provided documentation that he's an emotional support animal. Had to excuse himself to process this information. He spent 3 hours in quiet meditation trying to understand how any species could classify an extinction-level threat as emotional support. The research team's next stop brought them to Earth itself, the origin world of this confounding species. They had expected to find some form of explanation here, perhaps a cultural tradition that would make sense of this bizarre behavior, perhaps a historical event that created this tendency. Instead, they found that the situation on Earth was far more extensive than they had imagined. Humans had been adopting dangerous creatures for thousands of years, before they ever reached the stars. They had taken wolves, which were deadly pack hunters, and transformed them into something called dogs. These modified wolves now lived inside human homes, slept in human beds, and were dressed in small costumes for human entertainment. They had taken wild cats, which were efficient killing machines designed by evolution for pure predation, and convinced them to live in small apartments where they knocked objects off tables and demanded food at inconvenient hours. But the truly remarkable discovery was that humans had not stopped with their own planet's creatures. Since making first contact with galactic civilization, humans had adopted dangerous alien species from nearly every sector of explored space. There were now support groups for humans who owned howlers. There were online communities dedicated to sharing care tips for razor bears from the ice moons of. There were actual veterinary clinics that specialized in treating creatures that most species would only approach with heavy weapons. Interviewed a human veterinarian named Dr. Sarah, who ran one of these clinics. "I see about 30 different species of dangerous alien creatures every week," Doctor said while examining a lurker that was purring under her gentle touch. "The humans who bring them in are always so worried about their bobbies. Last month, a man cried for 2 hours because his pet death worm had a minor respiratory infection." "Death worm," repeated with terror in his voice. "Oh, they're actually quite sweet once they bond with you," Doctor said. "Very loyal, great with children too." The research team compiled their findings into a report that would eventually become required reading at every diplomatic academy in the galaxy. The report was titled, "Understanding the Human Phenomenon of Dangerous Creature Adoption," and it attempted to explain why humans exhibited this behavior. The first theory suggested that humans were simply unable to perceive danger correctly. Perhaps their sensory systems were faulty, and they genuinely could not understand the threats these creatures posed. This theory was quickly dismissed when researchers confirmed that humans were fully aware of how dangerous their adopted creatures were. They simply did not care. The second theory proposed that humans enjoyed the risk. Perhaps they were thrill seekers who adopted dangerous creatures for the excitement of living alongside potential death. This theory was also rejected when researchers observed that humans seemed genuinely surprised and hurt when their creatures were classified as dangerous. To humans, these creatures were simply family members who happened to have unusual abilities. The third theory, which became the accepted explanation, was far more unsettling. Humans possessed an emotional capacity that exceeded all known galactic species. They could form genuine emotional bonds with any living creature regardless of its danger level, its appearance, or its natural behavior. When a human decided that something was family, that decision all rational fear responses. The creature was no longer a threat. It was simply a loved one who needed care and protection. This theory was supported by extensive evidence. Humans formed bonds not only with dangerous creatures, but with each other in ways that logic. They would sacrifice their lives for strangers they had never met. They would travel across the galaxy to help friends in need. They would forgive enemies who had caused them tremendous harm. Their capacity for emotional connection was essentially unlimited. Ambassador presented these findings to the Galactic Council with a formal recommendation. Humans are not dangerous because of their military capabilities, he stated to the assembled representatives of 300 species. They are dangerous because they will adopt anything, they will love anything, and they will fight to protect anything they have decided is family. Any species that threatens something a human loves will face the full emotional and physical commitment of that human in response. He paused to let this information settle. I have personally witnessed a human woman attack a warrior with her bare hands because the warrior threatened her pet mud crawler. The warrior was 3 times her size. He was armed with traditional battle weapons. She was wearing formal business attire and carrying a container of creature treats. She won. The council chamber erupted in confused discussion. Continued. My recommendation is that all galactic species treat humans with extreme caution, not because humans are violent. They are actually quite peaceful under normal circumstances. But because the moment you threaten something a human has adopted as family, you will face an opponent who has absolutely no fear and absolutely no limits. The report concluded with a final observation that became famous across the galaxy. The most dangerous creature in the universe is not the howler or the crystalline spider or the flame serpent. It is a human who believes their family is in danger. These creatures understand this truth on an instinctive level. This is why they allow themselves to be adopted. They know that belonging to a human family means they will be protected forever, regardless of the cost. Years later, retired from diplomatic service and wrote his memoirs about his career among the stars. The chapter about humans became the most popular section of the book. Readers across the galaxy were fascinated by this strange species that adopted everything and loved without limits. But the final paragraph of that chapter revealed something that shocked everyone who read it. After completing my research, I found myself strangely moved by the human capacity for love. I returned to Earth Station 7 to visit the woman with the mud crawler. I intended only to ask follow-up questions for my research. Instead, I stayed for dinner. I met Bubbles properly. He wrapped his tentacles around me and made his famous bubble sounds. The woman laughed and said that Bubbles had decided I was now part of the family. I did not fully understand what that meant at the time. But now, 3 years later, I visit them every standard month. I bring treats for Bubbles. I have dinner with my human friend. And I have begun to understand why humans adopt creatures. It is not madness. It is the most beautiful expression of consciousness in the galaxy. The ability to look at something strange and dangerous and different, and to decide that it deserves love anyway. The memoirs became required reading for all future diplomats assigned to human space. And somewhere on Earth Station 7, a woman smiled as she read the ambassador's words, while her beloved Bubbles made happy bubbling sounds in her lap.